All right. Well, hello, everyone. We are now live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're from. We are here in Las Vegas, sunny Las Vegas, a little bit chilly Las Vegas. My name's Michelle Armstrong. I'm the director of EdTechTeam Canada, so I'm based out of Calgary, and I do believe Calgary is warmer today
in Las Vegas.
Calgary is warmer today than in Las Vegas, but that is okay. So we are at the Las Vegas Summit, the EdTechTeam Summit, featuring Google for Education, and this is our PhysEd Goes Google live session. Joining us today, we do have two experts in the area of PhysEd, coaching, athletics, technology. I will introduce them, get them to tell a little bit about themselves, and we will then share some links with you and then get started. But first of all, let's talk with Laurel Adolphe. Tell us who you are, what your role is, and anything else you want to tell us.
All right. So I currently am teaching at the high school, Rundle College in Calgary. I'm the head of athletics. I'm a senior varsity girls basketball coach, and I teach high school grade 10 phys ed. So I've done that now in the private sector and public schools in British Columbia and Alberta for the past 20 years. And have my master's in education as well. Got pretty sparked onto adding technology into the phys ed and athletic realm, really through being inspired by Michelle and her group of tech students that she always brought up and got involved in athletics and phys ed. And it's been a really great way to enhance our programs, to track our student athletes, to track our phys ed students, to keep those students motivated. And it's also been a really great way for me to connect with different types of students. So our athletes are now quite connected with our tech, and they go back and forth, and there's a nice mutual respect between those students and a mutual respect between the staff in those two different sectors. So we've had a lot of success with all of that, and it just seems to be getting more and more exciting. And I don't think you can really avoid the addition of technology in sport and phys ed anymore. So yeah, it's just pretty exciting to keep learning all about this technology within that field.
Fantastic, and love that the students are getting involved in helping you with that, and we'll probably hear more of that too, so that's fantastic. Great, thanks, Laurel. All right, over to Jonathan Long. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi there, name's Jonathan Long. I'm originally from the UK, but I'm now a Canadian citizen, so it's just sort of involved with a lot of sort of high-end sport. I was with the national programs for the Canadian women's program and then the men's sevens, where I was sort of doing a little bit of the analysis and looking at that. And then I'm now sort of working with World Rugby as well as teaching at the school, sort of developing technology where we can to sort of really aid the learning environment for these high-end athletes, but also for students, trying to develop their understanding so they can perform on the sort of competitive stage. So really my real realm is looking at how we can give the students feedback, but also how they can help themselves. And I sort of go through a couple of things that we're working with the national men's program at the moment. I'm sort of doing a little bit of analysis with them, as well as sort of toying with Google Classroom and Edpuzzle for feedback.
Great, excellent, and we'll dig into some of those as well. So thank you, John. What we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So you guys are going to lose me here, which is probably not such a bad thing, but we're going to show you this resource. So those of you that are watching us from wherever you're watching us from, take a look at the screen now. The link to this resource that you see here is edtech.team/PhysEdGoesGoogle. So that's a link that's going to get you into all of these resources. And what we're going to do with this session is Laurel and John really are just going to share some of the favorite things that they're currently doing. You'll notice this is a very, very thorough resource. We don't have time to go through all of these things today, but we will touch on some of them. Those of you that are watching at home, so watch the video link, those of you watching us now, you're already there. But you will also notice that there's a Q&A feature in to the right side of that video. So please add your questions there. We've got Charity Hellman here also from Rundle College. She's manning the Q&A, so she's going to let us know if there's some questions to be asked. We are joined live here in the studio or in the classroom. We've got about 20 folks here in Las Vegas that you guys don't need to use the Q&A feature. You guys can use the old school hand up Q&A feature if you guys have any questions, so feel free to ask us that this way. So this link again, edtech.team/PhysEd-goes-Google. You will see that in the chat, those of you watching. So if you miss it as I scroll down, you'll see it over there in the chat. So without further ado, why don't we start with you, Laurel? Let me just make sure that we stay on my screen here. Perfect. And you should see me scrolling down, hopefully. So Laurel, where would you like to start? What do you want to tell us about?
Oh, we could start with the slides, because I think that was sort of where I first started. I think it was the easiest way to start adding a few things just technology-wise. And really, this was key in including our tech students, because they were really the ones that ended up designing these in a format in slides that made it possible for them to print on a large scale color printer for poster sized draws. So I was able to give them the information in a completely different format at the beginning, and then they were able to create these slides, and they ended up showing me obviously how to do them. So now I'm a little bit more attuned to doing them myself and then just having them print. But that was kind of the first way that I got our tech students kind of involved in our athletic realm. And these are really nice for anybody who is a coach or running tournaments, large tournaments. We run pretty large scale tournaments at Rundle. We run provincial championships. We run Western Canadian championships. We run a large 16-team basketball tournament. So to have these things available and visible to everybody is great. It's a great resource for everybody, but it's also a way for people to kind of see and learn and understand how these draws work in the athletic world. We can use these things in PhysEd as well, badminton ladder tournaments and whatnot. But this was really just the kind of the gateway, I guess, to having our tech kids join us in the athletic and PhysEd realm.
Yeah, and so from the technical, backside of this, so this is Google Slides, and Google Slides, typically we think of that as the PowerPoint of the Google tools, but really this is the kind of the Microsoft publisher of your Google tools as well. So the way that Laurel and her students are using this is they've just changed the page setup in Google Slides and now can use this as a publishing tool. I'm going to show you that now. In the File menu, if you go down to, you need to have, in Google Slides, no problem. So we go down to page setup, and unfortunately I don't have edit access to this. So if you want edit access to this, so these are all Laurel's versions, but if you want to make your own copy, so first of all, go ahead and make your own copy. Then you have that template for you. Same goes for all of these resources, which is really great with EdTechTeam and people like Laurel and John. It's really all about sharing. It's not, we're not keeping our resources to ourselves anymore. So we encourage you, go ahead, make a copy. Once we copy that, then we have the option, File. Whoops, let's just see here. Then you're going to go down to Page Setup. Once you're in Page Setup, then you can change that. So they've already changed this. This is a 35-inch by 35-inch poster. But that drop-down menu gives you this menu to customize those page sizes. So if you've got a large format printer, 35 by 35, if you don't have a large format printer, send it off to UPS or Staples or wherever you get those printed. But that's really all they've done with Google Slides to allow them to have the ability to make posters. So awesome. That's great, Laurel. Thank you so much for that. John, why don't we head over to you? And what do you want to tell us about next?
I'd like to go into Google Classroom.
All right, love it.
So,
So Google Classroom. So John, because we don't have access to your Google Classroom, this might be where you're going to have to share your screen with us. You feel confident about that?
oh, very much so.
Right on. So here we go. We'll pop over to John, and John's going to share his screen, and he'll be able to log us into his Google Classroom to show us how he's using that on his side. So,
okay, so this is where I'm sort of utilizing the Rundle Rugby program. This is last year's. So you can see along the top, sort of, I've got all the teachers involved with the program, and then this is into the about. So even before I actually start the season, our season starts in around end of February and goes till mid-June. I sort of end up involving all the students and getting them in so they have access to it, and then I start putting in key components of what they want to do. So principles of play, so they can see how we're going to play the game on that sense. You'll also have my year plan, so I'll give to them, the year plan of what they should be doing and where they're going. Again, a little bit geeky in terms of there, but I always give the students access to everything that I'm going to do so they can really understand where we're going, and then we have our actual plan itself. So they've got all access to all this information even before we there, so I can tell them, what some of our current athletes are, what their age, their birthday. I can tell them what we're actually going to do, where I think we are. So really, and then I've got my key objectives for where they want to be. So it really is getting them to develop an understanding of what the program's about. Then we've got the training calendar of what they're doing. So really, this is all back end before we've even started the program, and they've got introduction to the game. So by the time they actually start the rugby, all our students will have been on there. So that really helps me set up how I want the year to go. And then obviously then we start looking at our stream on what's going on. So we went to the provincial finals this year, so I asked a couple of them to do their key principles. Just like we were doing assignment, I asked them to what a couple of their key principles were. So two of the boys gave us some of the information. Again, really just video of a game. So you can see now we've got access of a game. So we wanted to look at our scrums. That's where we looked at those. So again, I can really give the students access to that. The great thing about it as well is if, for instance, we do basketball. So I did a JV boys basketball program. Again, putting out AORs. Here's all the students that are involved, but I can also put out the schedule. But even if, side coach didn't get anything on the phone, can you tell me when the practice are? Yeah, no problem. So really, it's an ongoing document of what we can do, where we can go, put information in, and really help the students sort of like plan their lives as well as playing. So that's really how I use Google Classroom. Great thing about it as well, I can email individual pieces to them, and we'll go into sort of Edpuzzle, which is sort of where I use video analysts to sort of get them questioning how they play. So that's really where that is. So if I can pass you back.
Yeah, you bet. Wonderful. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
We'll maybe get that. There we go. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a Hangouts tutorial for you. Sometimes you get that feedback if the other people in the Hangout don't have their mics muted. So pro tip, if you're not speaking, mute that mic and it helps that. So Google Classroom, really great resource. I mean, in any class, but it's great to see it in the athletics. as that hub of communication. The other thing you may have noticed is you can share that with your other coaches or co-teachers. So you have your teachers that are able to communicate multiply, with the teams, with the students. So that's good. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A we're going to answer next, specifically about, we'll go the classroom questions and slides questions, and then we'll open it up to a few more questions. If you have them, we can address those. So first question was about Google Classroom. Are there any student privacy issues using Google Classroom? No, if your school is a Google school, then that means you've already gone through the policies that allow Google in your school, and so Classroom just falls under that. But as far as I know, there's really no privacy issues with that. We have another question. Have you allowed students to enter team data for them to look at to provide their own feedback on their performance?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes, I have done. So what I've done in the past is I use Edpuzzle, so they can actually look into that, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail, where I'll put a video into Edpuzzle, and obviously my question will be, what your thoughts are on this area here. I want to use Edpuzzle, the national program. We use a program called Coach Logic at the moment, where I'm working with the kickers, and they're sending me back feedback on how they're doing and what they're doing with video, and I'm having to tell them, oh, look at 1 minute 15 in the video so you can do those things. Whereas if I could upload it to Edpuzzle, I could freeze it exactly where the question is and actually show them, this is what you're doing wrong. Have a look. Can you transfer it off? So it really gives clarity to where it goes in there. And then I can add it to Classroom. So I'm having frustrations in the national program at the moment, and I'm trying to persuade them to use those sort of feedback for their players, so we can get them, because they're in Victoria, an hour away. So
perfect. No, and we will get into Edpuzzle. Those of you that haven't seen Edpuzzle yet, John's going to show some really great things with Edpuzzle. Excellent. Any other questions over there, Charity? No more questions. How about here in the room here? Are there any questions from you guys? We're good? Well, you know what? Why don't we segue into Edpuzzle, Jonathan? We may have one. Oh, hey, so Jonathan, actually, this is a good question, and Laurel, what do you think of the advantages of using Google Classroom over Google Sites?
For me, it's just I can keep control of it. So I can sort of see where the students are going, and I can sort of add those pieces to it rather than there. And then at the end of the season, when we have those students in grade 12 move on into the next season, I can shut that down, so they're not keeping involved and developing those pieces. So it's really that control factor, and I can sort of monitor how they're doing and what they're doing.
Can I jump in, Michelle? Because I use sites for a totally different group of people. It's on the resource. I agree with Jonathan, like Classrooms would be more with your group of athletes, or adding the parents into the mix, the teachers into the mix. But on the resource page that you have, I use sites for when I'm running all-star games, or when I'm running my big tournament, mainly for information for the outside people coming into my building or coming into my tournament. So it's more of an informational resource. I don't need to, it's just out there for them. I don't need any feedback from anybody. That's just basically my distribution of the information.
Yeah, exactly. And so the sites is really, it's a static, here's some information, whereas Classroom is that dynamic conversation. And we've got someone here in the audience, I think, wants to comment on that as well.
My name is Dr. Peterson. I'm the SHAPE Nevada state president here. And I use sites to get my athletes website put together for their clearinghouse material and all of their portfolio information. But I have my archery club. I use Google Sites. I use Google Classroom so that I can tell them about practices and information and things like that.
Perfect.
And we're really hoping that we get more people interested in this kind of information. And especially in the state of Nevada.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully, I'm not sure if you guys all picked up on that, but basically, so using Google Sites as a portfolio as well. So again, that static information portfolio is a great use of Google Sites. Then that communication piece coming through Google Classroom. Yeah, let's take it over next. Jonathan, why don't you tell us about Edpuzzle?
Brilliant. So I've been playing around with Edpuzzle. I'm a social studies teacher as well. So I really started playing around with Edpuzzle just as sort of plenaries for the sessions in terms of developing sort of intros to social studies, and then sort of had the idea of, well, why can't I use it for rugby and for different sports to sort of really get the guys understanding the game and getting them to ask questions rather than just putting it up on Google Classroom and going, do you watch it or don't you? They can just click done. I can actually see whether they've done it or not. So if you actually click into sort of like the little classroom I've sort of set up on the virtual P classroom. So what I've done is just put some of the things I've used in the board. So this one, you can use it from anyone. If you watch the first video on here, Start on Here, that's my 10-year-old son. He wanted some video of him goalkeeping because he thought he was coming off his line too far. So we videoed it.
So Jonathan, I'm gonna go. I'll go ahead and play, and then we'll see commentary there. So if you want to explain, kind of.
So yeah, so he was one-on-ones. He thought he was staying, coming too far out of his line. So again, I put a question to him: what can you do to keep your body upright? So just trying to get him on his balance, and again, playing around with it, looking on there, and sort of he could actually go and submit it. So, you know, he came and told me, oh, I've got to stay on my toes. I've got to keep my head over my body, chest high. So then we could submit it. So again, I was playing around with him while he was at school on that one, and then he could continue watching it. So then, again, developing his foot skills, where should his feet be? So it really was a case of, I knew when they'd watched the video and they'd given me feedback, and they couldn't go any further. They couldn't just skip the questions and go further. So if you have a look click on one of the other ones, it was in particular. So this is the next one is one of the national team kickers. So he's the scrum half for the Canadian men's national team at the moment, comes up to the school to work with me on kicking. So again, sent him this to sort of have a look at his, what do you notice about your body position? So that exact point, we could see his body position, you know, him falling away from his kick. So he came about me, well, I've got to get a little bit straighter so I can follow through. Again, now he knows what I'm looking at. If he's looking at the same thing, then we can continue to play. And then what direction is momentum going? So you can see he's going across his body. So he types on there and says, I'm going across my body. So now I can actually know they've got the feedback I've given them, but also I've given them an understanding of got them to control it. So it really is that sort of real-time feedback, but I know they've understood what's been sort of given to them.
Yeah, and Edpuzzle, for those that don't know, Edpuzzle, Edpuzzle.com, you can connect it directly to Classroom. You can pull in videos and then stop them at any point, add that commentary, and then you can force students not to be able to get past that. They have to answer the question. Yeah.
How do you link that to Classroom, and do you have a link that you just embed into?
So the question, Jonathan, is link that to Google Classroom.
Yep, Edpuzzle has a direct link into it, so I can go straight in there. So if I share on this, I can literally direct link to that. So I can go in there and then share, and then it gives me a direct link, and I can put, if you see on this piece here, I can put it straight into my classroom. So I can choose the class I want. So let's choose the Rundle Rugby, choose action, create an assignment, go. So now we can see in real time, hopefully, fingers crossed. It should come up into a...
That's okay, John. We've actually got Q&A. So Scott says, Edpuzzle is cool. Can you set it up as a quiz tool for multiple students? How is the data collected as a spreadsheet? So, question for you, I guess, as a quizzing tool.
Yep, absolutely. If I go into some of the other ones, like there's the getting to my feet copy here, I just ask questions and put it to the whole group, so I can just put in my class, invite all the students in, and then I get a full progress of what's going on. So there's a couple of areas for the rugby program. I'll ask them about tackle technique, just for safety. So they've all done their World Rugby concussion management piece, and I'll ask them that. Have they done everything? Is everything going on? So, and then I can quiz them, what are the key components? Well, keep your head out of the way. So really, it's a really cool interactive piece.
Excellent. Right on. Any other questions? You guys here? Oh, we're good. Okay, Laurel, where do you want to take us next?
Well, why don't we look at my massive athletic stats spreadsheet there.
Ooh, which is so cool. Do you want to share your screen, or you want me to share it from my end?
Go ahead and share it from your end. That's fine if you have it. You have it there anyway.
All right, we got it handy. So let's share this. So we are back at the resource for those. Oh, don't tell me I closed the resource. Oh no, I still have it. So we're back at our resource for anybody that missed it. PhysEd goes Google. It's a bit.ly. And what Laurel's going to talk about next is using Google Sheets for statistics calculations, all sorts of other things. But the one I think she wants us, are we going to do the athletic stats, the massive?
Yeah, let's do that one, because that actually is really, after I go through it, I'm really just asking for everybody out there for their feedback on maybe how we can make this even a little bit better. So this has been a work in progress for a number of years, and it's ended up giving me a lot of information. So what we end up seeing in this first tab is this is going to track all of the teams that the kids have tried out for, teams that the kids have made throughout that whole year. And in our junior high, we actually allocate major, minor participation points that then go into awards at the end of the year. So as you can see with those overall points, those are junior high students. So that tallies up overall points, which we were actually doing by hand, if you can believe it, just as little as about 5 years ago, still adding this all up by hand and trying to remember what teams kids made. So these stats end up being awards at the end of the year. So as you go through all of these tabs, senior high teams made, junior high teams made, all of this information is going into these tabs to give us awards at the end of the year. We also, as it goes on, we also give points for junior high, senior high athlete of the year. So another thing we added into making the decision for our athletes of the year was kind of giving them a grade out of 10. Another way for us to kind of track, and another thing that we can use in terms of identifying those athletes. So these sheets aren't accessible to all of my coaches. These sheets, when you go into certain tabs, if Michelle, you go through to just the first team, we keep going down. So this is all put on an athletic stats site. So I have a site that the coaches have access to, just modifying these particular sheets. And so they're responsible for putting in all of the kids that tried out, allocating them tryout points, indicating whether they've made the team. And then at the end of the season, they're allocating points on their attendance, their attitude. And like I said, all of this stuff then goes back to give me some information for athletic awards at the end. And then as you go through the 39 teams that Rundle College offers every year, at the very end, we also have where the coaches put in their award winners. So at the end of each season, we give an MVP award. Yeah, just click on that, that's fine. An MVP award, and we give what we call a coach's pick award. So that coach's pick award can be, a most improved player, most dedicated player, what have you. And at our school, we like to, because we have so many teams, and we're not a big school. We have 250 kids in our junior high, 250 kids in our senior high. We like to spread out our awards. So for me, from season to season, sport to sport, we like to balance it out. So if I see that for cross country, a student was MVP, and then later on down in track and field, they want to be selected for a coach's pick award. Well, then I just have a conversation with those coaches, and we try to balance those awards out. Whereas in the past, without being able to go back to these spreadsheets, we were getting kids with multiple awards, and it was really hard to track. So like I said, this is a really huge sheet. And we've always,
and I worry that.
And we've always been trying to see how we could streamline it a bit better. I mean, it's working, and it's giving us the information that we need. But I mean, there's a million formulas in there, and I always worry about losing those formulas and deleting information. So, I mean, we're always looking, and I'm open for somebody to say, hey, there's a better way to do this out there. So I'm open to feedback on that.
Cool. Yeah. And so that's a spreadsheet, it was a work in progress. We kept adding to it. Anybody that's got access to that resource page, you do have access to that spreadsheet. We've gone through and taken out the Rundle College student names and put in just some random names. But you'll see the formulas are in there. Anybody with some spreadsheet background knowledge, you'll be able to see how all of those tabs link back together, looks for the student names, tallies up how many points that they've had. It's something we can't get into in this session to talk about how that works, but just know it's a resource you can have. We did have one question though. Do all of your coaches follow the same rubric to score your players? So Laurel, how does that scoring rubric look?
Yes. I mean, it's junior. We just do the points for the junior high. So all of our coaches take attendance at every practice, every game. So that's a requirement for our junior high coaches. And then attitude and effort. We don't have anything written out right now that's set in stone. But I'm sure, like a lot of schools with their coaches and their staff that have been there for a long time, it's always something that we talk about at our meetings, our season meetings prior to the season starting. But yeah, no, we don't actually have a rubric written out. It's just always something that we're discussing, and people are generally following, historic ways of grading them.
Yeah, we've got a question here in the room, but we also have one more question in the Q&A that I want to just touch on quickly. So in the Q&A, it was David. David asked, how do you use the filter feature to view the information a little bit easier? So what I just want to point that out, just because the question was answered. Let's go back here to the Teams made. So built inside Google Sheets, and Excel as well, there is a filter feature. Let's go over, here's our filter feature. So when I click on filter, I now have this drop-down menu. If I want to see only the grade 7, so I click on 7, and then that's going to filter this out, so I only see grade 7. So that works on any of the sheets, whether it's this document itself or any Google Sheets that you have, that you can narrow down the way you see the information on that sheet. So thank you, David, for that question. And then we have a question here in the room. Question.
Do you use Google Forms to do your rubric for your coaches so that you can pull up the Excel information you want and then paste it into that Excel form? Is that how you do it, or do you have them just sketch out the numbers and you put it in yourself?
Oh, I can answer that. So the coaches all have access to just that one sheet. And Laurel, if you want to queue up the website, if you have that handy, if we can just take a quick peek at how that looks. But each coach would go into just their page. So grade 7 girls volleyball, they have only that sheet. And then they have a set number of points that they can award to each student. So 50 points if you tried out, 100 points if you made the team. But they're physically just adding those numbers directly to that sheet. It's not coming in from a form at all. So yeah, good question there. Let's go with Laurel. If you want to, do you have that so you can let us see a peek? And you're muted as well if you want to unmute.
Yeah, I'm just, it's coming up, sorry.
Oh yeah, no worries at all. We got a couple more questions. We'll see. Nope. What do we got?
Suggestion, question, suggestion.
Oh, here, I think we've got Laurel's going to show us that Google site.
Yeah.
Yeah, you betcha. We see it.
Yeah, so this is what the coaches have access. This is what the coaches see. And so depending on what sport they're coaching, they'll click in here and then they have access to just filling in the information on that sheet. So I've just given them editing rights to that sheet. And then the same for at the end of the season when they go into their awards, same thing, they plug that information into the sheet that they have access to.
And so what Laurel has created here, so it's a Google site, and you'll see it's got embedded sheets, but those sheets are published so that only one sheet is accessible to each of those pages. And then she's got those sheets shared just with her coaching staff. So it's really great to see the ability of the Google tools to provide access only to those people that need access. I think she's probably got page level permissions on here, so only the grade 7 basketball coaches can access the grade 7 basketball page. So really great granular control of those sorts of things so that they can't mess up the entire spreadsheet. So that's such a great website, Laurel. Great job. All right, where should we go next? We have a question from Karen. Our HPE teachers are always looking for the best and easiest way to evaluate their students using iPads in the gym. Any great ideas? I
do. We used a lot of stuff with the national programs. Again, New Zealand came in, don't have a lot of money. We just used iMovie. We literally would get the kids, video it, and scroll back because it has complete breakdown, and they can actually see, in short chops, and that was quicker than the $15,000 super coding piece we had to develop those. So we just used to use iMovie, came to video in there. Working down in Guyana with the national program we did the same thing. The guys had nothing, but they had a phone. So we got them to buy, it was called V1 Golf on their app, and they literally could video it, scroll back, and use it, and it's immediate feedback. So you don't really need all these singing and dancing, super programs. You can just use what the $5 apps, and they give you as much as than anything else. I use iPad for when we do grade 7 wrestling, because half of them don't even know what it's like. So I show them wrestling and I go, okay, what do you notice? So we actually use an iPad in there, so we can show them best practice, so they get an idea of what's going on. This is what a game looks like in volleyball, okay, and this is what we're going to focus on today. So you can really use video analysis for best practice.
Nice. Excellent.
Can I jump in? We have an academy campus connected to Rundle College, and at our campus we do generally do tests after every unit, and we're using Google Forms to do those tests. A little bit different at our academy campus, which are the kids with diagnosed learning disabilities, and for their testing they use iPads quite a bit, and instead of doing a written test, they will video each other performing the skill. And so when the teacher goes back to give them the grade, if they're getting all of the components of the skill, they've now performed that skill as their test, as opposed to writing the test. So that's used pretty extensively at that campus with our PhysEd department.
Nice, fantastic, excellent. And then one thing I'll throw in, and you know what, I don't think it's even on our resource page, using Google Forms for your quizzes and your tests. As the educator, if you've got an iPad and you're filling in information, you can also use Google Forms to assess your students. So you've got basically your rubric in a Google form, student name, their score, and then maybe commentary about that. But another thing you can add on to Google Forms is something called Doc Appender. And we do have a Doc Appender session here at the summit. But what Doc Appender does is each time that you make a comment or score a student, so Jimmy today, here's his score, here's his comment. Jimmy tomorrow, here's his score, here's his comment. Doc Appender will then compile each of those into a Google Doc so that you have that running commentary, that daily assessment of Jimmy, of Johnny, of Sally. So it's an add-on called Doc Appender, which I'll go ahead and I'll add those resources to our resource sheet. Those of you here at the summit can go to the session and learn about Doc Appender, but that's something to keep in mind as well. Great. Okay, well, let's go. Laurel, do you have anything else that oh, we do have a question at the back. Hold tight. Yep.
Help me understand. So using Google Classroom, is there any restrictions that can be outside the education domain?
Yeah, so the question was, using Google Classroom, are there any restrictions if you are outside of the education domain? And I'm glad you asked that question. It's a huge issue in the sense that we do have a number of sport organizations that want to use, but you can't use an educational institution. We have tried get them educational licenses. Sorry, John, can you just mute? We've got that echo. Sorry. Awesome. So I have been working with Canada Institute of Sport specifically, and we've run into roadblocks that we can't get them an education domain for Google. So they decided to go with something else. That being said, Google is telling us, and I hope this is not NDA, but I have heard that Google Classroom is coming to enterprise, so to give Google domains for if you're a business, so Google domains for business. So that's my hope, is that it will come to that business side and then they can still have it as a corporation. But you're right, it's at this point, without being an educational institution, you don't have access to Google Classroom. Does that answer your question?
You can't bring in students who are not in that domain or other coaches.
If you have a Google domain that is associated with an educational institution, so you could create your own Google domain, you apply to Google and say, I'm an educational institution, they will grant you a Google for Education domain. So if that happens, you're set. And then you would provide email addresses for all of your athletes. Now the problem comes in is if you're not associated with a school or an educational institution. That's where you run into some troubles. But certainly talk to me later and I'll give you some strategies on that for sure. Was there another question there? Yep.
I'm going to piggyback off that. So with the site with the Google Sheet embedded,
Yes.
if you create the sheet within an education domain, you cannot share the link outside of that domain. However, if you embed it in a site, can people outside of the domain view it without having to share every email individually?
Okay, so the question was, if you've got the embedded Google Sheet inside that Google site, if you can't share it outside of the domain, does embedding it in the site change those sharing policies? No, it doesn't. So if you're set up in your district that you can't share outside of the domain, you can't share outside of the domain. But hopefully your district hasn't restricted that and you're able to share outside of the domain, especially to be able to share those with coaches from all of those different schools. So yeah, excellent. Any other questions? It's always questions. Okay, go ahead. Laurel, is there anything else you'd like to show us or tell us?
Well, I mean, still in that site, another thing that has worked really, really well, and has been the tracking of our fitness testing, and that's in sites as well. I mean, it's been a nice way to track our kids' progress, and within that, within those sheets, we're able to allocate bonus marks for improvement. And so once again, it's just going back to those other sheets and seeing improvements, seeing scores, tallying up. I mean, we give marks for fitness testing at our school. I know not a lot of schools do that anymore, but we do. We're able to see where our records are. Our kids are really motivated by that kind of stuff. But what I really like is the fact that it's tracking their improvement. And so that's been really helpful, because then we give bonus marks for their improvement. And so that's really been motivational, and it's so much easier to have that as a resource, because I would never be able to track all that with the 100 kids that I teach and the 6 different testing that we have, and to try and give them those bonus marks that they deserve. So that's been really, that's been a good thing for me within PhysEd.
Nice. And so those fitness testing resources, you'll see them on our resource page. Again, capitalizing on Google Sheets, the formulas that you can build inside Google Sheets. Granted, you will need someone on staff that can help you, get those formulas in there, but to take a little bit of time to set up some spreadsheets that combines the data among tabs. They're using it for their fitness testing as well. Pretty powerful stuff in Sheets.
Yeah.
So.
And just
Awesome.
as Michelle was saying before, make a copy of it. Those are there, like the scores and the formulas are there. So if they're pretty easy to change depending on what your scoring rubric is, but the bulk of those are there. So make a copy and make it your own. Like, we're more than happy to share that out to everybody.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Laurel. John, do you have anything else you want to tell us or show us?
No, I think that's pretty much it. For me, it's just you can really utilize real-time coach and player feedback. So I've just persuaded the coach education program for Rugby Canada to start using Google. And again, I've been speaking with Michelle on how we can sort of help them utilize it. So we have a core group of educators, and we've sent this information out to them, and they're now utilizing Google to share good practice. So rather than using Dropbox and all the other pieces, the sharing of using the Google has really helped us sort of give information out to coaching and really developing the coach education process. So, we're now starting to utilize it in national programs, because they're not worried about giving France access to the information or whatever, or sort of personal rights in those things. So that's really helped us with the sharing process in the education sector for rugby.
So great. Excellent. Well, maybe I will go back to our resource. Let's share this, and we'll take another quick peek at some of the things in there. There we go. So back to our resource again. PhysEd goes Google. It's a bit.ly. You'll see we didn't even get to touch on track and field, activity signups, and Google Forms. Laurel also has some links to some other websites there. Jonathan has some links for classroom use. One thing, so this really is a full day workshop that we think that there's enough interest in the athletics community to warrant helping you guys see all of the potential of technology in your classroom. So hopefully we'll start to see those workshops popping up. You'll notice down at the bottom there, if you see that in your district that, you've got a group of phys ed teachers, PE teachers that want to get together for this full day workshop, you'll see how you can request that, and we can bring Laurel and John, me, like we can get a workshop set up in your area. And then you'll notice the last link that I give you there, EdTechTeam Online. We have a number of online courses. So if you want to know more about how to use spreadsheets, You can take that online. It's just in time, so at your own pace. You can learn all about Google Sheets, all about Google Forms. They'll tell you about Doc Appender. So be sure to check out that EdTechTeam online. And who knows, perhaps we'll even have a full online course for PE and Google for education. So we'll talk to John and Laurel about helping us build that. Questions? Any other questions there?
No, just the permissions on the track and field day form, Laurel, need to be changed so they can access it.
All right. So Laurel, you got that. If you can change the permissions so that people can make a copy of the track and field form, thank you so much for letting us know about that. How about any questions here on our live studio audience? Well, great. Let's go back over here and thank you guys so much. And if you do have any more questions, just continue to put those in the chat if you like. At the top of the resource document, you'll see contact information for John, for Laurel. They'd love to hear from you, love to hear some feedback. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to let them know. But Jonathan, Laurel, thank you guys so much for being here and for all of those resources. They truly are remarkable. And thanks just for inspiring teachers in athletics to go forward with technology. So thanks so much.
You know what, Michelle, I'm just one plug for you.
Sure.
Well, I just, I for everybody who's been in education for so long, I think it's so easy to become part of your own thing, part of your own discipline. And I think as coaches and phys ed teachers, a lot of times we think that what's going on, what's new is coming into education, a lot of times doesn't apply to us. Which is totally wrong. And I think with having Michelle inspire us, and now we have Charity inspiring us at our school, it can make everything that you're doing as a teacher and as a coach so much better, and you become more accountable, and just the level of respect that students and parents and your colleagues have for you, with more of a joint effort to make sure that everything that you're putting out from your school to your kids to your community is valuable. And so I really want to thank you guys, Michelle and Charity, for really bringing that passion to me and to Rundle College. And I just think that people always pushing and not being afraid to try these things, even if they don't seem like they're going to change the world, really. It's motivating, and it really keeps you interested in your craft. So thank you to you guys. That's awesome.
So nice, Laurel. That's so fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. We got to leave it at that. That's a perfect way to end this. Laurel, thanks for those words. Thank you guys for being here. And we'll see you very, very soon.
See you tomorrow, guys.